there's a lot going on, so I thought this might be a good opportunity to answer some questions and, I guess maybe get some feedback too. What should we be doing different? I know the BBC, for example, is not thrilled about being labelled state-affiliated media.
Not exactly. I mean, I was going to get to that later, but let's go for it now. It's officially objected to that term. Do you want to respond to it?
Yeah. So our goal is simply to to be as truthful and accurate as possible. So I think we're adjusting the label to be publicly funded, which I think is perhaps not too objectionable. We're trying to be accurate.
I'm not the BBC, but publicly funded is how the BBC describes it.
Okay. So that would be accurate. That's if we use the same words that the BBC uses to describe itself, that presumably would be okay. I'm not asking you for a yes or no since you're not running the BBC per se. But it seems to pass a reasonability test.
So you're going to change those labels on the BBC Twitter feed and also NPR's as well?
Yeah. Publicly funded. Basically, that's we're trying to be as accurate as possible.
First of all, I just want to clear something up. Are you sleeping in the office? Here?
I sometimes sleep in the office.
Like?
In the library.
5 days a week?
No.
3 days a week?
I'm not here 5 days a week. But there's a library that nobody goes to on the 7th floor, and there's a couch there, and I sleep there sometimes.
In terms of the general overview, the reason why I think you've agreed to do this is because you wanted to talk about the first 6 months as chief executive owner of Twitter.
It's kind of like whatever you want to talk about,
Right. So, how do you think it's gone?
Well, it's not been boring. It's been quite a roller coaster. Things are going, I think, reasonably well. I mean, we've seen some all-time highs in terms of total user time. So we passed 8 billion user minutes per day, which is a lot of user minutes. So usage is up. Growth is good. The site works mostly. You have a few glitches here and there, but the site is working fairly well. And we're doing it with a small fraction of the original, headcount. So,
I mean, you mentioned outages there. There have been several.
Yeah.
And we've actually spoken to an engineer who works at Twitter, and they said that the plumbing is broken here and it's on fire and there could be problems at any minute. Do you accept that?
No, I mean, there have been a few outages, but not for very long, and it's currently working fine.
So it doesn't keep you up at night that Twitter might go offline again?
At this point, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what makes Twitter work. And we're also doing it with 2 data centers instead of 3. So we used to have 3 data centers. We shut down one of them, so we were actually at roughly two-thirds of the prior compute capability. But we've made so many improvements to the core algorithm. In some cases, we improved the core algorithm by 80%. So the actual CPU usage or computer usage is dramatically less. But the results speak for themselves. The system, despite being at all-time highs of usage, is fast. It's responsive. It's more responsive than it was before the takeover. And we've also added long-form tweets. We've added, you can now post videos up to 2 hours and soon videos of any length. We're rolling out our subscriber programs so people can, content creators can actually make a living on Twitter by having some of their content behind a paywall. We open source the algorithm, so there's transparency about what tweets get shown, what content gets shown versus not. I think you say, like, what are you really going to trust? Are you going to trust some sort of black box algorithm from some other site, or are you going to trust the thing that you can actually see and understand?
But do you accept that there are lots of engineers that are looking at at the way that Twitter is built and the lack of engineers because so many have left and are worried about the health of Twitter?
Well, I mean, there've been many of these people have predicted that Twitter will cease to function. Their predictions have not turned out to be true. You know, insert Mark Twain, saying, rumors about death are greatly exaggerated.
Let's go back 6 months and even further back than that. When you put that initial bid in, you then had a wobble. You kind of said, I actually don't want to buy Twitter anymore.
I mean, it really is quite entertaining. I mean, it's like soap opera because when I first made the offer, the response was the board adopted a poison pill. So they were like, hell no, you can't buy Twitter. We'd rather die. We'd like chew on cyanide before being bought. That was their initial response.
And then, you said, actually, I don't want to buy it.
Yes,
So
and then they said, no, you must buy us. Gun to the head, you have to buy us. I'm like, are you the same people who said you'd rather die than be bored? Doesn't that seem odd?
So I guess my question to you is, in terms of, you said that the reason was because of bots, because Twitter was filled with bots.
Well,
now, looking back at it now, was there a little bit of you that thought, actually, maybe I've overpaid. Actually, maybe I don't want to do this. I want to get out of this. Be honest.
Yeah, no. The problem was that the publicly stated user numbers were in excess of the real user numbers.
But I've heard you talk about that.
Yes,
you can talk about there are lots of bots. But
yes.
Basically, looking back at it now, was that the only reason that you wanted to pull out?
Yes. That was literally the issue. It's like let's say you buy a warehouse full of goods, and you're told that less than 5% of the goods in the warehouse are broken. But then you actually get the warehouse. You look into the warehouse, and it turns out actually 25% of the things are broken. You'd be like, that's not what you said.
And so then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that?
Kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is the reason.
Right. So you were still trying to get out of it, and then you just were advised by lawyers, look, you're going to have to buy this.
Yes.
Interesting. So you, so you didn't actually want to purchase it, even when you said you were going.
Not at that price.
You were going to, really.
No, I mean, like let's say, I think the analogy is pretty close. Like, let's say, it's like there's a warehouse full of goods. They say the warehouse, less than 5% of what's in the warehouse is broken. And then you walk into the warehouse and say, actually, it's 25%. So you might still want to buy what's in that warehouse, but probably at a lower price. Not buying the stuff that's broken.
So you didn't have an epiphany. You just thought, I'm gonna have to buy this. I might as well buy the bullet.
Yeah.
So then you walk.
It's not super complicated.
Right. I'm not sure you've said that before.
Fair enough.
So then you came into Twitter.
Cue a whole bunch of court cases. You said this in the BBC interview, blah, etc.
So you then came into Twitter with a sync. What were your first impressions?
Well, I thought, wow, this is a really nice office building.
Expensive.
Yes, a very expensive office building. Great decor. It's a lovely place. And definitely spending money like it's going out of fashion, which it isn't quite going out of fashion yet. No, I mean, the gravity of the situation is perhaps not well understood. At the point at which the company, the transaction closed, Twitter was tracking to lose over $3 billion a year. And had $1 billion in the bank. So that's 4 months to death. So this is your starting position. How would you feel? Pretty intense. you know.
You also had to borrow quite a lot of money and pay interest on that too.
Well, that's why part of why it was the $3 billion run rate. So, in rough numbers, a normal year Twitter would do, say, let's say $4.5 billion in revenue, $4.5 billion in cost. I mean, it was really kind of like a non-profit. I mean, they'd run it at roughly break even. Now, the problem
But
is,
that's not bankruptcy. You're not saving that
No.
company from bankruptcy.
No,
It's breaking even.
But then the issue is that if you then add $1.5 billion in debt servicing and have a massive drop in revenue, which we did, which was partly cyclic and partly, you know, political concerns and whatever. So revenue, you know, call it dropped by over a third. It's not, and this is not just Twitter. You know, Facebook and Google have also seen some significant advertising revenue declines. It's been a little higher at Twitter, but most of the advertisers are coming back. So I think we'll be back where there's a cyclic demand drop, which is still pretty significant. But in rough numbers, revenue dropped from $4.5 billion to $3 billion, and expenses went from $4.5 billion to $6 billion, creating a $3 billion negative cash flow situation, and Twitter having $1 billion in the bank. That's 4 months to live. So unless drastic action was taken immediately, this company's going to die and be owned by the banks.
Let's talk about that drastic action, because almost immediately you sacked a lot of Twitter workers.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them. It's very easy to speak to them when it happened. And the way they said, pretty much everyone said, is that it felt quite haphazard.
It was.
And it felt a little bit uncaring.
I wouldn't say uncaring. You know, the issue is like the company's either going to go bankrupt, or if we do not cut costs immediately, this is not a caring, uncaring situation. It's like if the whole ship sinks, then nobody's got a job.
Do you have any regrets buying Twitter?
I think it was something that needed to be done.
I mean,
It's been quite difficult, you know. I'd say that like the pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. This hasn't been some sort of party, so it's been really quite a stressful situation, you know, for the last several months. Not an easy one. But apart from the pain, I mean, so it's been quite painful. But I think at the end of the day, it should have been done. I think. Were there many mistakes made along the way? Of course, you know, but you know, all's well that ends well, and so I feel like we're headed to a good place.